In 1625, King James I, a persecutor of Christian nonconformists, died. His son, Charles I, ascended to the throne. As bad as James might have been as persecutor, Charles was worse. Within 2 decades, the religious conflict in England grew so severe that the nation was plunged into civil war. The Puritans, led by an independent, Oliver Cromwell, won, and King Charles was beheaded in 1649. Meanwhile, back in 1630, Puritans were leaving England in a great migration that would result, eventually, in several thousands of them uprooting to the New World, specifically in New England. Thus, the Pilgrims had paved the way for this mass uprooting. For the most part, these Puritans were not your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. These men and women were among the cream of society. They were the well-educated and the well-to-do, but they were religious nonconformists, and they all cherished the biblical concept of covenant, an agreement for self-government under God.
The Puritans were critical to the rise of covenantalism and to republicanism and to American freedom at large. Now you have to say the 17th century was, as historians put it, teeming with freedom. You had the Puritans, yes, but you had the levelers and the ranters and the shakers and the Quakers and the agitators. So they are absolutely decisive in shaping early American freedom.
Earlier, when he had studied at Cambridge University, Puritan leader John Winthrop joined with other like-minded students at Cambridge University, made a covenant with each other, committing themselves to God first and then to each other. Winthrop had a sizable estate which he spent to help further the colony. He lost much material goods, but he was committed to the cause.
Many were the afflictions of this righteous man. He lost much of his estate in a ship and in an house, quickly after his coming to New England, besides the prodigious expense of it in the difficulties of his coming here. Cotton Mather.
This uprooting from their homes and their wider families must have been traumatic. About 100 or so of the original settlers who created Boston in 1630 decided to return to England after several months. However, the vast majority stayed, even as some of their brethren contended with fatal diseases.
Reverend John Winthrop was one of the first great Americans. He is the one that talked about the shining city on a hill. And this is really important to understand, that the American experiment and the idea of self-governance and that objective moral truth is embedded in our society isn't something that just came out of a vacuum or someone woke up with a great idea one day. It was something that came from a long line of understanding biblical truth that has been around eternally.
The covenant was all about the reciprocal responsibility of all for all. The rabbis call it the politics of love. You love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. You love your neighbor as yourself, and you love the stranger because you were a stranger in Egypt. Of course, it was rediscovered by Calvin, Zwingli, Knox. In Scotland they call themselves the Covenanters. And the later word Whig, which became a word for freedom, is actually from the Scottish word Whigamore, which was a Covenanter. And so in England, Oliver Cromwell in the English Revolution, he says Exodus is the direct parallel of what he's trying to do, and he failed. The Republic in England was short-lived, a failure. So it's called, historians, the lost cause. But here's the point, the lost cause in England became the winning cause in New England. So the Mayflower Compact is a covenant, William Bradford. The model of Christian charity on the Arbella from John Winthrop is a covenant. And you can see covenants came not only in the churches in Boston, New England, in the townships and in marriages. And then John Adams describes his written constitution in Massachusetts as a covenant. In Connecticut and right throughout New England, the idea, the separatists were very radical.
The state of Connecticut calls itself the Constitution State, yet the Constitution was written in Pennsylvania. To understand why, we have to go back to its founding. After disagreeing with the Massachusetts leadership on some points, a splinter group of Puritans decided it best to form their own colony, which they were free to do. So in 1638, under the leadership of Reverend Thomas Hooker, this group left Boston and went to Connecticut to form their own colony. Hooker preached a sermon under a big tree that year. That sermon was based on 2 verses from Moses in the book of Deuteronomy.
Take you wise men and understanding and known among your tribes, and I will make them rulers over you. So I took the chief of your tribes, wise men and known, and made them heads over you, captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, and captains over 50s, and captains over 10s, and officers among your tribes. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 13 and 15.
Early the next year, he and the people of this new colony wrote the first fully developed constitution on American soil. That's why, to this day, Connecticut likes to call itself the Constitution State.
We do, for ourselves and our successors, enter into combination and confederation together to maintain the liberty and purity of the gospel of our Lord Jesus, which we now profess, the fundamental orders of Connecticut. The foundation of authority is laid in the free consent of the people that the choice of public magistrates belongs unto the people by God's own allowance. Reverend Thomas Hooker.
Reverend Hooker brings his 150 people down to Connecticut and founds this colony. When he does, he uses the Bible, the book of Deuteronomy, as the foundation for his constitution. He writes it in 1639. That constitution becomes the foundation for the American Constitution in 1787. So the Puritans were the ones who were thinking through liberty.
Writing about the fundamental orders of Connecticut 2.5 centuries later, one author said of this pivotal document,
"The fundamental orders of Connecticut mark the beginnings of American democracy, of which Thomas Hooker deserves more than any other man to be called the father. The government of the United States today is in lineal descent more nearly related to that of Connecticut than to that of any of the other 13 colonies." John Fiske.
And so when the New England pastors were forming their different communities of Hartford and Exeter, New Hampshire, and these different places, they were using this bottom-up form of government, this congregational form of government, not just for their church, but it transitioned to their community government. So we have a direct line where it was the Bible and these pastors that affected the formation of government in New England. And eventually, Connecticut, being the Constitution State, affected our U.S. Constitution, which starts off with "We the People."
By 1643, the various colonies of New England came together to create the New England Confederation.
We all came to these parts of America with one and the same end and aim, namely to advance the kingdom of our Lord Jesus Christ. The New England Confederation, 1643.